I'm Tim Suddard. I'm here on Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
What a pleasure to have you on the program. It's been a little while since I've seen you. It was Monterey, it was Car Week. You were in the midst of several other great annual events that you do around Car Week. But how have you been?
It's been a busy fall, and as you might remember, we also had a hurricane to deal with 3 weeks ago.
That's right.
It's been real exciting. But
the car world's back to normal now, right? Full force.
I would say, it varies state by state. California was a little slower to open up than a lot of states, but mostly I'd say things are close to 100% normal. If we even know what normal is anymore.
Yeah. How did COVID change the car collector world and the vintage car world and even just the gatherings that were so commonplace at various events around the country?
Well, I think, obviously the events slowed down or stopped for a bit, but as far as the culture and the world, I think it ramped the knobs up to 11. I mean, prices on cars went nuts.
Mm-hmm.
When we came back from, isolation or whatever you want to call it, people, every event I've been to this year has been at record levels. I mean, there's a lot of pent up demand. And in our world, our world changed. We started this, I sent everybody home. I said to my wife, I said, I think this is what's going to take us out. The digital revolution didn't, the Gulf War, 9/11, none of that stuff. We survived all of that. But I said, this is what's going to take us out. I don't think we can survive. I don't think I'm smart enough to run a company remotely. I think our advertisers will leave us because, how do you promote an event that's got canceled, And after about 3-4 weeks, I said, have you noticed how well everything's going? Hardly anybody canceled. Circulation and web traffic has gone nuts. Our employees are happy. We're communicating better. And so, that permanently changed our company. We're selling our larger building and moving to a smaller building because everybody's happy working at home, and including me. You can see I'm here in the shop, and that's where I like to be.
Yeah, no kidding. And the appetite for vehicles. We've seen it on the new car side. We've had many guests on the program who've talked about that. We know the inventory situation, but we've also had some other folks on the program. I think of Gord Duff from RM Sotheby's, who can't even imagine where the auction prices are now and the appetite for all of that. So the theme, Tim, is there was a lot of pent up demand, and that's being unleashed. And now the car collector world and the vintage world and the attitude around vehicles in general has just skyrocketed.
Absolutely. And it's also changed. Your emphasis isn't on the 60s British sports cars and muscle cars like it was 5 years ago. It's I've got a 91 318IS BMW that's red hot, a Volkswagen GTI with a Callaway turbo, an early A1 GTI, which is red hot. So your younger people are coming in. It just makes sense. Your 85-year-old is not out there actively looking, and I'm generalizing, but they're not actively going, oh my God, I need 20 more cars. Where your 40-year-old, your 50-year-olds coming into their peak earning years, and they're going, oh, it's playtime. We kind of say, especially with classic motorsports, you got your kids out of college, your mortgage is paid off, it's playtime. And that's the reality of life. And it's just, whether you get a motorhome and start traveling cross country or get that car you always wanted from your high school years, it's playtime. And the playtime is different for today than it was, 2 decades ago.
Yeah, and the freedom of mobility too was also heightened during the midst of COVID, and the fact that you could actually have a family vacation again in a vehicle.
Yeah,
all of these things that had seemingly gone by the wayside. So, you're a publisher. How's the publishing business been for you?
Well, good and bad. On the plus side, our classic motorsports circulation's up like 36% this year. Our grassroots circulation's up not quite as much, but very good. But on the downside, our printer's saying don't sell any more subscriptions because we can't get paper for you. Ink has gone up 14%. Postage and shipping has gone up for everybody. So, I actually wrote a column a couple, 3 months ago and said to our readers, we're going to have to raise the, we've kept the $20 price point for 20 something years. And I said, we're going to have to raise, I hate to do it. We're going to have to raise the prices. And if you're not willing to pay it, we're going to, move to just events or digital or something. And our readers, they screamed loud, letter after letter after letter. We don't really care what it costs. Keep doing what you're doing. So
Wow.
I think there's there's less car magazines in the world. And I think people are going, oh, if we don't support car magazines, they're going to go away. And car magazines are cool. So overall things are good. We're certainly not taking money to the bank in droves, but we're remaining viable, and we've adjusted our prices, and we're going to have a real good year in 23.
You decided a long time ago that America's car magazines focused way too much on folks who had a lot of money. And there wasn't I'll use your term, there wasn't the grassroots representation that exists. And you wanted a magazine that was focused on regular people who liked fixing their cars and buying cars and wanted to be around cars. How has that changed?
Well, the start, I was a broke-ass kid. I was 24 years old. I was fixing up a 240Z, didn't have two nickels to rub together. And I loved car magazines. I'd go buy a car magazine. All I wanted to do is tell me how my new Porsche Turbo, how fast it was 0 to 60, or how awesome my new Ferrari would be. And I'm like, how does that help a broke-ass kid with a 240Z? And I was like, we used to have sports car graphic back in the day. It was a little more down to earth, and I liked that. And so we said, why don't we start something? And motorsports oriented too. I was into autocrossing and then got into road racing, and we wanted to talk more about that, not just street use. And as far as today, when we started, there was the SCCA, there was EMRA, a regional club up in the Northeast, a Midwest Council, and a couple of others. There was no NASA. There was hardly any track day type stuff. There was hardly any racetracks. I mean, there's almost twice as many racetracks today as there was 40 years ago. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of different groups, sanctioning bodies. There's Porsche Club Racing, there's BMW Club Racing. None of this stuff existed when we started. I'd like to say, and it certainly made us successful, but I'd like to think that, we might have helped make all this stuff grow. And I'd go to the SEMA show back in the mid 80s, and I'd talk about road racing and autocross, and they'd look at me like I had two heads. They'd be like, wait a minute, cars can only go left. They don't go right and left or straight. They go straight. And I'm like, you people are frustrated. Now you go to the SEMA show, and the whole muscle car movement has moved towards like the Optima streetcar challenge, and the whole world has moved to where we are rather than us moving to turning left. So that stuff's doing well too, but the world has changed immensely. It's a huge market. PRI recognizes it, SEMA recognizes it, the new car manufacturers, when they're building stuff like Subaru WRXs and new Corvettes and Porsche 911s, it's come our way.
How about culture? When you think about the addition of things like cars and coffee on weekends, that certainly didn't exist when I was a kid. But now
I think that's generational. Guys my age, we read an ad in the Road and Track. We sent our $15 in to be in the Triumph Club, Porsche Club, whatever it was. We got our little newsletter. We maybe went to a convention, and and car show people. We'd sit our lawn chairs out. I never did. I never did the whole lawn chair sitting out listening to people ask the same damn questions all day long. It was not my scene. I was more comfortable at a track event, but the world has changed. People say, oh, young people aren't into cars. That's crap. They're totally into cars. They're just in it, and not the way, my generation was into it. So, they want to be on an internet group. They want to learn how to take a Volvo turbo and put it on a Mazda or this or that, just how to junkyard engineer stuff, and, what we specialize in. And they want to do cars and coffees. I go to a Import Carlisle swap meet every year and show, and it's so cool to see, 50 kids with, kids, I'm saying 20, 30-year-olds, sorry, a 40-year-old's a kid for me these days, but they'll get together and meet each other. They're on internet groups. They meet each other for the first time at an event. They have a good time. They drink beer. They swap lies. It's totally, cars and coffee. The whole culture has changed in the 40 years I've been in it.
Has the definition of a classic motorsport changed as well? I mean, I'm sure it has. You've been involved in one of the oldest and largest vintage races in America, the Midi.
Yeah.
So what now is a classic motorsport? That's evolving.
Yeah, that's certainly evolving. I mean, you've got groups like the VSCCA up in the Northeast, and they're very, I don't want to say stodgy, but I mean, their rules I had a 57 Triumph TR3 and they're like, that's too common and new. I was like, it's been a race car since 59. How can that not be a vintage race car? HSR, I think, is taking the lead on that. Although SVRA has got Spec Miata is now a vintage class. So, I mean, a Miata is a 30-year-old car now. We were writing about MGBs, which stopped in 1980, 20 years ago, and it was only a 20-year-old car. And I was like, well, a Miata can never be a classic. It is. Wake up and smell.
Yeah, now it is. Sure.
So, HSR kind of took the lead. You've got, and racing changed too, because, in the 60s, the British cars dominated. In the 70s, Nissan dominated. And then by the 80s, Porsche really started to dominate. In the 90s, I mean, you go back to the 24 Hours of Daytona, it was almost all Porsches 20 years ago. Well, those are now old race cars. So, HSR is being dominated by these same cars. So, it's a natural progression. There's nothing wrong. I mean, people like to bitch about stuff, but there's nothing wrong. It's just time marches on. It's common sense.
Yeah, exactly. Who's doing? You have such an amazing purview over the entire industry and the culture that exists here. Which manufacturers are doing well to preserve culture, nurture culture, and keep cars and culture on the top of everyone's mind?
It's been funny. It comes and goes. I mean, Mazda was absolutely at the top of the game. I mean, quite honestly, they've had some management changes, and I think they've slipped. Porsche has always been there. They've got Porsche Classic Center, so they are certainly at the top of the game as far as preserving classics. Who else? I would say that's, Ford, I guess is certainly, they're at, I mean, Jim Farley's, I know he's been on your show. He's a friend of mine, and he's certainly done a lot to preserve Ford's heritage. He's out there at racing. He's very involved. So I got to give kudos to him. I would say those are probably the top right now, in my opinion. I mean, there may be others I don't know about, but it's not Tesla, I'll tell you that.
I was just about to get to them. So much conversation. And, when you and I were at Car Week in Monterey, we saw a ton of it as well. So much attention and consternation and hand-wringing and whatever else around some startups, and I wouldn't consider Tesla a startup anymore, but certainly the Lucids and the VinFasts and the Rivians. What's your opinion on their place in car culture?
Well, first, Monterey Car Week, especially the Quail on Friday, is an absolute fiesta of cars I've never seen or never heard. They only seem to exist on the internet. I mean, it's amazing, these different brands and the prices they're charging. And I don't know how many of them sell a car. I'm not saying Lucid and Rivian certainly are real. That Lucid is I haven't driven one. I've sat in one. It's pretty darn nice. I'm not an electric car hater. I don't have one. It's obviously happening. The pace at which it happened. I mean, right now, I think something like 3% of people drive electric cars. And if tomorrow it changed to 97%, I don't want to get into politics, but we'd have some huge issues. The infrastructure is obviously not there for an instant change. But I mean, electric cars were winning the race 120 years ago too. So, I mean, it was electric, steam, and gasoline powered. So, it is a shift. It is happening. It will happen. It's probably a good thing. But, if it happens over 50 years, we'll probably be fine. And if it happens over 5 years, we're pretty screwed.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get into some of the fun stuff that you're a part of. And let's first talk about the Concours de Le Mans, as they would say in France, or as they say here, Concours de Lemons. And I was just recently introduced to the whole idea, but digging in, you celebrate, and you are the head judge. This is an event, multiple events, where you celebrate the oddball, the mundane, the truly awful of the entire automotive world. You celebrate the unbest, from Chattanooga to Amelia Island to Monterey to Detroit. And you hand out awards that say things like slightly better than a go-kart or sight for sore eyes. And you've interviewed people who praise the $50 that they've paid for the Vomit Comet that is rolls onto the lawn. It's the anti-Monterey to some extent. It's the anti-quail, or a different quail. I mean, tell me about it.
It kind of I think it got started, and I've been there since the start. It wasn't it sort of was my idea, in that we started an event back in 1999 called the $2,000 Challenge. And I got so tired, every cocktail party, everywhere I went, it's like, oh, geez, you're so lucky. You're rich. You go racing. I could never go racing. I couldn't afford to do that. And I got so tired of it. We started this event called the $2,000 Challenge. And it kind of, I don't know if we were copied, every idea has an idea before it. So, but we started somewhere. We did a drag race, an autocross, and a wacky car show for cars that had to be built and modified and prepped for 2000. Didn't include the travel costs to get there. And, we did this the first year. 3 staffers built cars because we knew nobody would get it or show up for it. We had like 25 cars show up. It was a hoot. We loved it. We're doing it. We've been doing it since. As a matter of fact, we're doing it this weekend. Tire Rack is now the presenter, and CRC, which makes Bright Clean, is involved, and Miller Welders. So I mean, it's now a big deal.
You got professional. You got grown up with it.
Yeah, we sold out now. But no, they provide prizes and stuff and help fund the thing. But so that started it. Then came the 24 Hours of Lemons Racing. Jay Lamb, who's a dear friend of mine, started that. And then he sold, or I think he pretty much gave the rights to do it to Alan Galbraith, who started the Concours de Lemons. I was there at the first one. It was actually sponsored by another magazine. Everybody gives bribes, and a lot of the bribes are liquor. And now with weed being legal in California and other places, we see that too. And so it doesn't make for sober judging. And trying to be delicate here. The first year, Alan, let's say he was overserved from the bribes, and I helped him sort the whole thing out and the results and that. And he won't deny this. And I said to him afterwards, I said, I don't want anything for this, but next year it's going to have our magazine's name on it, Classic Motorsports, and not that other magazine. He said, yes, it will. So it has ever since. Haggerty now owns it. I helped Alan put that together so that could happen. And so where were we going with this?
Why do people like it so much? I mean, you folks showing up with the ultimate lemon. I mean, it's a derogatory term when you buy a new car that doesn't work out, but this is all celebrated.
Yeah, well, Pebble's very serious. I was talking to Jay Leno about this. He's a friend of mine, but he said, he judged once at Pebble, and people screamed at him. People tear up their hotel rooms if they don't win. I mean, it's all very serious. Rich people are used to getting what they want, and I'd be careful here, but national audience. But I mean, it's the reality. Some people take things way too seriously. So the whole thing is kind of and we love Pebble. I think it's that and Amelia Island Concours, the most amazing shows I've ever, maybe Goodwood, but the most amazing events I've ever been to. But
your event's rich with irony. It's all ironic.
That's kind of the point. And also it's for every man. I mean, you can't get a car into, as Leno said, I hate as a single digit millionaire, which probably isn't true, but I hate competing against billionaires as a single digit millionaire.
It's a good joke.
So it is, well, he's got a lot of good, it's kind of what he does.
It's a good joke.
But, so, it's for every man. And some people take it very seriously because Alan and I MC the thing, and we pick on people. We go, they'll have a 74 Maverick 4-door with the big bumpers, and it's absolutely perfect. It's the nicest one on the planet. And as far as they're concerned, it's a Ferrari or a Bentley. It's that important to them. And we're kind of like, come on, really? Are you serious here? So, but I mean, right now I'm restoring a Bug-Eye Sprite, which is a cheap car, was a cheap car, is a cheap car. And I like cheap cars, it's fun. It's cute. My wife's like, it's the same amount of time and money pretty much to restore an E-Type or a Shelby, a little bit higher buy-in, but as far as the process of restoring a car is the same. So you might as well restore something that's worth something. But these people don't, either because they like that kind of, and a lot of this is about what you had when you were a kid. I mean, I had a buddy with a 67 Buick Skylark, and we did some bad things in that car. I remember it fondly, and I still like this car. So I think everybody's kind of like that. It's about what you had back then. So, but yeah.
Why did McKeel Haggerty? Why was he interested? And we've had McKeel and Soon on this program just prior to this acquisition. What was interesting for them? Because they're involved in Amelia Island and all these lavish, beautiful,
Well, McKeel, I know McKeel quite well. I consider him a friend, and I've interviewed him on our channel.
Yep.
And I've known him for years. They're one of our biggest customers. And first off, he's a real car guy. And also, it gets probably more media attention than anything else in Monterey because it's funny, it's interesting, it's a goof, and that's an easier story to write than some rich guy one pebble yet again or something like that. So no, I think it's a good business model for them. It wasn't terribly expensive either, but it's a good business for them because it gets media attention and it shows that they're real car people. And it also shows that Haggerty, if you've got a 74 Maverick and you love it, Haggerty will insure it. And they do. And I have my cars insured with them. They do a great job. Sadly, I've had to make one or two claims and they're right on the spot with that stuff.
You travel around the country with this event. I'm guessing at every stop, the participants are just as excited as any other place to be there. They look for it.
The difference is there's more of these cars out west. In Michigan, they've rusted away pretty badly. Although we see some rusty crap at Monterey too. But I mean, this love is universal. And there's two kinds of people at Concours de Le Mans. It is people that are dead serious. I mean, Alan is, he's pissed off the Cadillac Alante group. Not a great car, but I mean, they were flaming him. They were like, "You're the devil. How dare you pick on our amazing cars?" Some of the Corvair clubs, and they're like, take their cars very. And I've had a '63 Monza Spider. I think they're cool cars, but are they in the same league as a 911 Porsche or Shelby Mustang? Not so much. So I mean, so there's people that take it very seriously, the cars anyway, but most everybody, they'll bring some kooky junker and they get the joke, So
well, they dress up. I mean, some of the videos that are out there are fabulous.
It's a riot, and Alan and I love emceeing it. We have a blast with it. So
yeah, we have to take the show there next time for sure.
Love that.
You have other things too. I mean, you have the Halloween Hoopty Fest. There is that 24-hour of Le Mans with the $500 cars now. So there's a home here for anybody who, like, as you said, can't afford the track time and the technical team and everything else here, but they can really showcase their passion and their love of these vehicles in various ways.
The whole point is inclusive, not exclusive. That's the point. And, you don't need to be snotty with people. You don't need to be elitist. Even our classic motorsports tours that we do, you know, a lot of these different tours say, you know, you have to have a car this old. If you love it, you think it's a classic, we'd love to have you. You know, we're more interested in good people than, you know, amazing car, you know. I mean, we get amazing cars, but I'm saying is we like cool people that like having fun with their cars. So pretty much everything, our brands are down to earth and inclusive. I mean, it's kind of the way we roll. It's just, you know, the way I was grown up and, you know, raised. And so.
Well, it's kind of you anyway. I was going to say your first car, a 67 Mustang Fastback, you bought it for $100, right? You fixed it up. You sold it for $800.
Oh yeah, it was a big deal. You know, back in the mid 70s, you know, all this old Mustang stuff, my friends, my parents were like, this stuff's never going to be worth anything. Why would you care about a 10-year-old Mustang? And it's like, you don't get it. It's amazing. It's going to be big. And, you know, I kept buying and selling them. And finally I bought a 66 GT 350 Hertz model for $2,700 in 78 or 9. Yeah, 79. And came with a 65 Mustang parts car, which that alone's worth 10 or 15 grand right now, a fastback. And I sold the thing for $7 grand. And everybody thought I was a genius in 1982. Well, turns out I wasn't a genius, since it's a $250,000 car now, probably. But I used that money to start our media company.
Yeah. With somebody, the best automotive advice that you've provided. This will be breaking news for everybody, right? But buy low and sell high, but buy the best you can afford.
Yeah, and we do the opposite, because if we buy a perfect car, then what's the story? Oh, we're rich bastards and we bought a perfect car. Aha, you can't. So that's not, you know, I bought a Lotus that was literally broken in half. I found it in a field in Michigan. It had been sitting out there for almost 40 years. And I got it for essentially nothing. I got 2 cars. I sold one for more than I paid for both, and then restored the car. I called Bill Warner, who was running Amelia Island Concours at the time. And he said, I got a publicity stunt for you. You see this broken in half Lotus that's been out in the field? I'll have it on the field at Amelia in 2 years. And we'll write about it, document the whole process. And he said, love it. Let's do it. So, you know, that's kind of what we do. And of course, now I've done a few of those, and now I'm like gotten pretty well known for buying absolute unrestorable cars and restoring them. And I'm like, no, that was a publicity stunt. I don't want to do that anymore. It's a horrible idea. Buy the best car you can buy, you can afford.
You've restored over 40 vehicles. Is that right?
Actually, I just was the guest of honor, Grand Marshal, whatever you want to call it, at the National Triumph Convention. So I had to refresh my speech, and I'm up to 50 now.
50.
Yeah, full or partial restorations. I don't do all the work myself, but that is, you know, that's one of the projects behind me, and I do a lot of it myself. You know, I'm not in this to become a billionaire. I'm in this because I love cars. I like learning about cars. I like meeting the different people. And, you know, if you'd have told me as a teenager growing up in a Ford dealership that I'd be caretaker for 25 cars and I'd know all these different people, and I'd have said, come on, that's not, you know, Peter Brock writes for us. He's a legend. I read about him in the day. Now I talk to him 3 times a week. It's, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, how do you make that up?
Yeah, it's amazing. Where is the car world going as it relates to restoration with the entrance of vehicles that are becoming just harder to fix?
I don't think that's true. In a lot of ways, the modernization, you know, car manufacturers have gotten better at putting them together. And I think what you'll have is the people that designed these electric components, from the power window motors to the ECUs, these people are alive still, but they'll retire and they'll start cottage industries. I mean, I just talked to a guy a couple days ago. The ABS pump is failed on the 91 BMW, and he rebuilds the ABS pump for about $400. So there's a lot of these little cottage guys that are taking different parts from these cars. So I don't foresee a major crisis. Honestly, the bigger problem right now is like E36 M3. The interior panels and stuff are rubbish. They were then, they are now. And that kind of the interior trim, some of that stuff's gotten harder to find. It's almost more that than the mechanical components at this point. Now, you know, I'm not trying to restore a 2023 Ford Lightning pickup might be a different matter, but or a Tesla or something like that. But at this point, the stuff from the 90s and the aughts is not proven. You know, there's always, if there's a need, you know, that's the American spirit. If there's a need, somebody will figure it out and fill it, like the guy building the ABS pumps.
Is there a segment that you see booming more than others, whether it's, you know, now kids interested in 90s Japanese vehicles? You know, that's sort of, at least when I was a young man in the 90s, that, yeah, they were somewhat appealing, but boy, are they hot now for 17 and 18-year-olds.
Yeah, that's hot. The other thing, I mean, I've been a BMW guy. Yeah, I like a lot of different cars, but pretty much all cars except Studebaker Avantis. So I don't care for them. My buddy Dave Kinney's gonna, if he listens to this, he's got about 12 of them or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's the guy that does the Haggerty Buyer's Guide. He's an Avanti freak. And by freak, I mean freak. But so anyway, I like BMWs. And I'm like, why aren't BMWs valuable? And then first, 2002 started to pop. E30 and an E30 M3 sold on Bring a Trailer last week for about 182,000. Now this happens like as soon as one sells for that price, you don't know the details. Everybody in the world that has a clapped out salvage title E30 M3 says, "Oh, my car's worth 200 grand." No, it's not. But now, I mean, I drove an E36 M3. I've had them in the past, but I drove one a couple of weeks ago on our Golden State tour that we do. Fell back in love, as I knew I would, and started looking for one. I mean, that was a $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 car for decades, or a couple of decades anyway. That's not the case anymore. A nice one of those, well, a real nice one sold for almost 100 grand last week or 2 weeks ago on Bring a Trailer, and a nice one's 30, 40,000, 50, 60,000, depending. What I don't think people understand is there's collector grade cars. I mean, I just picked up an 07 911 Carrera, a 24,000 original miles, guards red, which is a good color. Absolutely flawless, pretty close to a number one car. Is basically goes onto a Concours field and goes back into the trailer. It's that nice. And most cars are not number one condition. If you're a really, really nice, show winner, at least at a local regional level, is a number two car. But this car is really nice. And those cars bring the big money, and so when you see something sell for twice, three times what it should, it's the collector wants that car. He does not want one with issues. He does not want one that's been repainted or has been crashed, or high mileage. So that's almost a different kind of car than a normal, a car for normal people.
I have that 07 911, by the way, a 997.
Great car, huh?
It's a wonderful car, and I haven't sold it yet. But if I was going to sell it, I'd probably sell it on Bring a Trailer. Let's talk about that for a second. We've had Randy on the show last year. Tell me about that phenomena of Bring a Trailer and what it's done.
Randy's a friend. We helped him get started. I liked it right away. It originally started as just a site where he posted stuff that he found on eBay and other places. And then he started the auction format. And I sent him a note and said, "Randy, you're an idiot. You've ruined everything. Bad idea. You had a good thing going." And then obviously I was an idiot. I was wrong. It took right off. About 4, 5, 6 months later, I sent him another note saying, "Yep, I might have been the idiot there. You're a genius." and he sold it and got a lot of money. And well, I think the key to it is, first off, the technology allows that now. We say, "Oh, why didn't I think about this 20 years ago?" And actually, just as eBay was starting back in the 90s, I was late 90s, I was talking to somebody about starting a rival auction site. And thank God I didn't. I would have probably got whooped. But the technology wasn't there. It's there now. But what makes Bring a Trailer work is what some of the people hate. They have all the comments, because you get a lot of trolls and idiots that say, they're never going to bid on anything and they'll bitch about something. But you also get a lot of knowledgeable people And I buy and sell on Bring a Trailer. I look at it every day. I'll admit it. And you get a lot of knowledgeable people that really make you feel confident about the car, but it's hard to steal anything there. You're not gonna, it's hard to steal anything anywhere. You used to be, you'd see a car in a garage under a tarp and the owner thought it was worth, I bought Porsche 914s and stuff for $200, but those days are gone because, first you've got stuff like the Haggerty value. It's in about 3 seconds, you can find out roughly what a car is worth if you're not too lazy to do so. That wasn't as easy to do back then. And the values are changing quickly too. They didn't, the things stayed in the $10,000-$15,000 range for years and years and years and years. And that's just not the case anymore. So, but yeah, I think the comments, the audience, when he started, first time I talked to him about it, we'd done marketing together. He had an audience of about 35,000 people early on. It's a little bigger than that now.
Yeah, no kidding. It's watched incredibly closely.
Yeah.
Where does the car, the vintage car scene, where does it move? What are you looking forward to over the next couple of years? And what are maybe some of your goals and ambitions?
Well, my ambition, my son is now part owner of the company. And my ambition is to screw off more with cars and not work 60 hours a week anymore. Personally, no, I have about 25 cars. I'd like to perfect a few, maybe sell a couple, add a couple, and spend a little more time enjoying them. Personally, as far as the hobby itself, everybody's scared about something. Oh, we're not going to have fuel for our cars. Oh, we're not going to be allowed to drive these cars on the street. I'm always the glass is half full kind of guy, not the glass is half empty. I mean, I'm not saying there are no problems, but at least in my lifetime, I don't see any major problems. I don't, people are like, are we going to have a downturn? Cars haven't really had a downturn. I mean, as far as an investment, it's a tangible asset you can have fun with. Stocks and bonds aren't that really fun to play with. And there's so much fluctuation when there's, like now, when there's fluctuation in the market, I think, I'm not a stock expert, but I think people move to hard assets and cars are hard assets. And the other thing that's changed is a car was considered it was not an asset you could get rid of quickly. And that's changed. I mean, it used to be if you wanted to sell a car, if you were investing in a car and you wanted to sell it, you had to put an ad in Hemmings or one of our magazines, and you'd send letters back and forth, and you'd go take pictures, and you'd go to get them developed, and you'd send them to the guy. And, it was a huge thing. This was before eBay, Bring a Trailer, and everything else, auction companies. I mean, there's always been auction. Auto Trader. Yeah. I mean, that was the way you bought and sold cars. It was a horrible, process, inconvenient, flawed for sure. And today, I mean, if you have an emergency come up, a car is a very liquid asset. It's not been considered a liquid asset. I think it's a liquid asset. I can get rid of anything in my collection in 30 days. So,
yeah.
So I think that's a fundamental change. I think it helps make it a better investment. And then, you have such, the audience is so much larger for this stuff. And Haggerty and the sanctioning bodies have been advocates of this and have helped spread the world. So I think, I think they published something a few years ago and said something like 1 in 7 people has an old car or a classic car in their garage. And I said, that's nuts. And I started driving around, and now that could be a 74 Ford pickup. They're not all Ferraris, but somebody has what they consider a toy classic car every 7 times, one in 7 people. So
are there still barn finds out there? We went and looked through Bruce Meyer's garage in LA a number of months ago, and he showed us the barn find that's worth about $2 million.
Yeah.
Are there still barn finds out there?
Why would you go to a junky place like that?
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, that guy's collection is amazing.
It's been viewed a few times.
Yeah, yeah. There are. I mean, it's harder. I mean, communication has changed so much in our world in the last 50 years that is more difficult. It still happens. I still stumble on stuff occasionally, but I mean, back in the day, I bought a race-winning Triumph TR3, won the Daytona 24 Hours, its class 3 times or twice, and picked it up for like $4,800. Situation, right time, right place. But that doesn't happen that much anymore. But I mean, you still have, I bought I'm restoring an Elva Mark VI. That was the first mid-engine sports, not sports car, but a sports racer. And the car was, the guy had it up in his rafter in pieces. And he said, yeah, I'm never going to get to it. Just take the damn thing. And, and for very little money. And I go home, I get a hold of the registry for the Elvas, and they said, oh my God, you found the factory Sebring car from 62.
Wow.
And I called the guy back. I knew him. I said, you dumbass, you could have figured this out too. And he says, don't worry about it. I'm over it. So sometimes people are just over it. They want it out of their garage. People's situations change every day, their health, their manner, what they want, what's important to them. And I bought cars where the guy said, I've had 50 people ask to buy this car, but I just decided last week I'm going to sell it. You can have it, that kind of thing. So, and we all have these stories about, trying to buy a car for years and years. And finally the guy, or it's gone, you go buy it and, the guy tells you, I'll sell it to you. And then he sells it to somebody else. We all have these stories, So, but the point is that things change constantly. So this does still happen occasionally, but not as much as it used to.
What do you want in your garage?
289 Cobra.
Okay. All right.
I'm in hopes this show's going to make me enough money that I can do that. No, it's growing up in a Ford dealership. I knew Carroll Shelby not super well, but I knew him. We did some ad stuff for him, and that's always been my dream car. White's okay, blue, red interior, that'd be okay.
Dark blue, dark red.
Yeah, gray wires. Nothing specific. I think, and I have a real Shelby Mustang, and I have a real Sunbeam Tiger. That's as close as I've been able to get. And it seems like every time I make another buck, they go up $2. But yeah, that would be the ultimate. I'm not a big Ferrari guy or Maserati. I like all that stuff, but I like simpler. I guess I'm kind of a redneck, so it's kind of a redneck sports car. So.
Are you just a couple of final things, Tim? Are you do you consider yourself a guardian or a caretaker or a creator of car culture?
I don't like to take myself too seriously. I don't, I guess, a lot of people have had some effect on something, and I guess running a media company, biggest in the segments we serve for almost 40 years, I have had some effect. I would certainly, like to be remembered as somebody that tried to help and tried to do good and not, just, give rather than just take. But I think we're all caretakers. Anybody that thinks that this is their car doesn't really understand how life works that well.
Right. You're just renting.
We're just caretakers, and what we do, and I just makes me mad when people are like, won't give something up. They're like, it's outside, it's rotting, they're 85, 90 years old. Oh yeah, I'm going to restore it someday. Come on, do the math, dude. Let it go. Let some younger person enjoy it.
That's good.
It's maddening, but that's it's part of what we deal with.
I read somewhere that one of your favorite books is by Walter Henry Nelson, Small Wonder.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I think the Volkswagen story is, the only Volkswagen I have is I have a Myers-Manx, original Myers-Manx dune buggy, which I think is cool. I think it's a neat. A friend, Andy Reid, gave me that book once, which was a nice gesture, and it's a it really tells the story. It tells the story a lot about what was going on in Germany. And we could learn right now in this country, we could learn something from what was going on. And, again, don't want to get political, but come on, the Nazi thing, we solved that once. Let's not do that again. I mean, the whole propaganda thing. Oh man, it's, if everybody would read that book, America might be a better place. And the way the reconstruction and how the factory got handed off between America and England and what happened. It's a pretty darn cool book. I think it's out of print, but it's a real interesting story. They basically scammed the German public into buying coupons to have one of these cars. I guess after, they deliver them after the war. And,
After the war, right?
it's just an intro. There's a lot of cool car stories. That's one of the coolest I've read.
Your parting advice is enjoy what you do, enjoy playing with your cars. But here's the best part: be nice to people.
Yeah, it certainly is. I don't take this. We're having fun with cars. It's not that serious. And I've won a few, I've lost a few, but I've never, wrecked a hotel room or anything.
Don't tear a hotel room up.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the thing I take from this interview is don't tear a hotel room, especially if you have a lot of money.
Right.
Oh, and the other thing too is that rich people typically get what they want. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tim, you've been...
look at the NFL owners, and they're like, you want to have a meeting with those guys?
No.
Tim,
you have been a pleasure to have on the program.
It was a lot of thanks. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate the invite.
You are, I will say, you are a guardian of cars and culture. So
well, thank you.
Thank you.